I'm Cale Sanderson.
I'm Scott Boroff.
And welcome to Fight Lab.
Hey everybody, welcome to our first episode of Fight Lab. Super excited. I know a lot of time's been put into this, a lot of hard work, so we're super excited.
Yeah, been in the works for a while. It's finally nice to get it underway. So Before we get right into it here, I'm going to give a little bit of background about both of us, how we got into the sport, how long we've been watching it, etc. So I'll start us off. My name's Cale Sanderson. I actually got into the sport at a pretty young age. The very first UFC fight I ever watched was Chuck Liddell versus Tito Ortiz 2, which, looking back now that all this time has passed, it's one of the most monumental fights that the sport has ever seen. That knockout Chuck Liddell had, will live on forever. So really got into it right around then. Chuck Liddell was one of my favorite fighters growing up, just the passion and the energy he brought to the sport. So from then on, I actually got into boxing a little bit. Manny Pacquiao went on to be one of my favorite fighters and still is to this day. He's still going. So I actually, then after that, I got to see guys like Anderson Silva come up, also one of my favorite fighters to watch in the octagon. So ever since then, those guys that have really been huge superstars in the sport, I've just been absolutely glued to it. It's very rare that I miss a week of UFC, so right. It's become one of my favorite passions. So how about you, Scott?
A little bit different for me. I have more of a gaming background, and I really fell in love with those fighting games, UFC games growing up. Always played with Anderson Silva, just loved his style of everything he did. But and that kind of transferred into more of a casual watching of the UFC, and then about a year ago, I got a little bit more serious into it because this guy over here started making me watch fights with him. So, and now we just love it. We live it now. So
yeah, it's been both one of our favorite passions as of recent. It's really awesome to just something we can do together. And the thing I love about it is the sport of MMA, particularly in the UFC, just with all the talent. I mean, anything could happen on any given night, and
there's nothing safe.
Oh, it's awesome. The energy, the entertainment aspect of it, and the UFC does such a phenomenal job of marketing the sport. That's one thing that they just have above everyone else. Absolutely love it. So let's get right into things here. UFC 248. It's kind of an honor we get to cover this as our our first main event for our episode. And wow, what a night. We'll get into it. We're going to dive in right now. So let's start it off with the finale of the prelims. Yep. We got the return of Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Jose Quinones.
What a fight.
Great performance from Sugar Sean. I know he's been highly anticipated to return. For those of you that don't know, Sean O'Malley got brought to attention through Dana White's Contender Series. Just his style, his energy, personality, everything about him. I mean, the kid has superstar potential. For those of you that don't know, Sugar Sean O'Malley actually got suspended by USADA for a banned substance. It was actually presented, though, that he did not mean to take the drug, but he still had to serve a suspension. But it did get cut short, so he got brought back for this event. What a performance over Jose Quinones, a first-round TKO victory for Sean.
And just looking at him, you wouldn't think that he has that power.
No, he's got that Napoleon
he's goofy.
Dynamite
He's goofy
look or
looking.
Something. Man, what a performance. So, I mean, from the start, one thing I said to you during the fight is how relaxed he looked.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was he was so relaxed, had control from the get-go over Jose, and I mean, he took 0 damage, absolutely melded him in right around 2 minutes.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that?
Well, my whole thing is he stayed composed the whole time, and the way he looked relaxed. I hate when fighters go out there looking all cocky and doing stuff.
Oh yeah.
It gave me more confidence in him by him being not overly confident, as in not cocky.
And this is a guy that he does have a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
But maybe it was him being humble for his first fight back, and he did tell Brett Okamoto from ESPN that he really hasn't done anything. Because Brett said, well, for your haters that say you haven't done anything, he's like, well, I really haven't beat anybody too great. And I love that about him. He comes in, he's got all this hype, but he stays humble, and he went out there had the best attitude and energy, and man, did he put on a performance. We'll touch a little bit later about his performance bonus that he received.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the main event now. Alex Cowboy Oliveira defeated Max Griffin via split decision. What'd you think about this fight? Alex Oliveira, I actually had picked to win this. Man, it was back and forth. What'd you think about it? Real close.
I mean, I had my money on Max, and he was the underdog in the fight. Mm-hmm. I think it was almost one of those fights where I was happy either way it went.
Yeah.
Even though I did have money on Max, I think that it was so close you couldn't really.
Oh, it was back and forth the entire time. I mean, we saw everything: grappling, takedowns.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great fight to kick off the main card. Cowboy Oliveira has had some great fights in his career, real exciting finishes. We didn't really know what we were going to see, but man, it was a great kind of low-key fight to kick off the card, and the fans really got their money's worth. Next fight was Neil Magny. He defeated Li Jingliang via unanimous decision. And we both picked Lee.
Yeah.
He's been on a nice little win streak. He stayed active. Neil's been absent for about 16 months.
Yeah.
And he was coming off a loss from Santiago. We both had Lee. Man, did Magny prove us wrong. He really used his reach, his grappling. I mean,
Lee didn't even look like he was in the same fight.
No.
To me. And then there was a couple times where Magny had Lee on the ground, and it almost looked to me like Lee was trying to talk to the ref. And it's like maybe something underneath where he's got a side pinned down, like maybe he thought he was grabbing his glove. But there was a couple times I counted at least two where it looked like he was talking to the ref, and it left him wide open where Magny just a couple jabs to the face, and it was like, what are you doing?
I mean, we're talking Magny was standing on the feet trading with Lee.
Yeah.
I mean, got him on the ground and pound, the grappling. I mean, the big thing that stood out for me was Magny's cardio.
Yeah.
It was off the charts. I mean, he looked like
He looked fresh.
He looked like a Colby Covington level cardio out there. I mean, that's something that we don't see too often. And man, I know it was only a 3-round fight, but this really, really outclassed all the hype that it had. With Lee had the hype going into this, and man, did Magny, what a fight. So, third fight on the main card, we've got Beneil Dariush versus Drakkar Klose. Going into this, Dariush was the favorite.
Yeah.
I actually had Klose as the underdog winning this fight. I know we were both a little split on it, going back and forth. So I want to talk about this. So round one, Dariush really just got it was almost at the beginning of the fight. He got Drakkar and jumped on his back. And man, did he literally was against the cage on Drakkar's back for the last 3 minutes of the fight?
Well, the good thing about that was he was in control of that round, and we could clearly say that Benny D won that round.
Yeah.
The bad thing is he was having to support himself up the entire time on his own legs. So next round, you could even tell in the next round his legs were dead. Because, and it was a completely different round than the first round because of that. But
it's actually kind of crazy. So after that happened, it panned to Dariush's corner, Klose's corner, and they were saying that, hey, his legs are dead. They're like, go for him.
Yeah.
Immediately in round two, Klose starts leg kicking him, and it was really taking a toll on his legs. It was more of just his legs were just like they had fallen asleep almost.
Just fatigued.
So fatigued. They weren't hurt or anything. So round two, Klose comes out. The round progresses a little bit. He's really working his legs. Then he starts pressing him against the cage, and he got some really nice headshots. Yeah. And Klose had stunned Dariush pretty bad.
Yeah.
And then everyone, Joe Rogan, Daniel Cormier, John Anik, they're going crazy. Klose is about to finish the fight. All of a sudden, Dariush catches him with the left.
And then
Klose starts coming backwards. Dariush chases him slowly across the cage and puts him out with the left. And, the reaction from Cormier, Rogan, and Anik says it all. They were laughing, falling on top of each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an amazing fight.
The funny thing about that too is because his legs were so fatigued, the way he finished him, it looked awkward. Like he looked like a zombie trying to punch because it was so straight legged.
Oh,
but yeah, definitely at the post interview, he was talking about he knew his legs were tired, and then he's like, I had to go in with my arms, and he's like, I knew I had to. There was no other option, and he really answered back.
He said, when you come at me. He's like, this sometimes hurts me, it sometimes helps me, but I'm like, okay, let's fight. I'm going to come back at you. And he's like, tonight it helped me. Just a really genuine interview there. Absolutely loved his performance. He ended up getting a performance bonus for the night.
I would almost say, like, besides, and we're going to get into this in a little bit next, actually, for the women's fight, I would say that was one, like, if the women's fight, if you take that out, that was fight of the night for me.
Yes, 100%. Right after that happened, I actually thought that would be fight of the night. Yeah. I really did. I mean, incredible. Let's talk about this, too, just real quick. Close, we didn't really touch on this, and for the first round was so close to being submitted when Dariush was on his back. I mean, there were 3 different times where Dariush had a choke on him, and Close would move his arms, and then the choke would just get worse. And Joe Rogan really touched on that. And man, the fact that he survived that, then he almost KOs Dariush the next round, but then he gets KO'd trying to do so. I mean, unbelievable fight.
Yeah.
So let's move on here to the co-main event. We've got the women's strawweight bout championship between Weili Zhang and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. This fight going into the night actually gained steam as possibly the most hyped up fight.
Well, Dana was even saying in his post interview of the whole night, he was talking about how when he promotes fights, he never goes out and tells people just to go watch a fight. But he said this is the first fight for the women's fight.
Yeah.
That he was like really just telling people, you need to watch this fight, you need to watch this fight. And he was right about that.
Oh my
There's a lot of things that he was wrong about that night, but he was right about that one.
Yeah, absolute fireworks from the beginning. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I was blown away. The chin on both of them, especially Joanna, I mean, unbelievable. I mean, Joanna Jędrzejczyk has got to be the women's strawweight, but prior to tonight, or prior to the fight, the women's strawweight GOAT.
Yeah.
I mean, she won the title, had 5 title defenses. I mean, that's unbelievable. And Weili, her performance in her title fight when she won the belt was unbelievable. Came out just fireworks from the beginning and knocked Jessica out. And then now she fights Joanna, which is her toughest opponent yet. And man, was it a fight. I mean, every single round, they would go toe-to-toe, and you would think, okay, one of these punches, they were landing. We thought it's going to put one of them out either way.
And I was, the whole time, I'm like in my head mentally trying to score things, and it was impossible because I was like so like immersed into this fight because it was so intense that there was no way for me to like score this fight. So at the end of the fight, I was kind of like nail biting, didn't know who won.
So we both picked Zhang.
Yeah.
What did you have it scored? I actually had it 4-1 Weili, but it was razor thin. I
would just go 3-2.
Yeah,
Weili.
you had rounds. What'd you have? 1, 3, and 5.
1, 3, and 5.
And I had 1, 2. What did I? I had 1, 2, 4, and 5 maybe.
I think so.
I had it 4-1 Weili Zhang, but I mean, it could have gone either way. I mean, we're talking razor thin rounds. I know 4-1 sounds like a landslide. It was not. Man, let's talk about Joanna's face, though.
Yeah, well, first, that was what I was going to talk about when it comes to, like, the fight. Because when you have a fight this good, right, your next question is, when's it going to happen again? Like, when's the rematch going to happen? Because it was such a good fight. But right now, I don't think that's the talk right now because they went straight to the hospital right after.
Touched on that, too. Yeah, you've got to think Joanna for sure, and I would think Weili. They're both going to have medical suspensions to where it's going to be a while. And
especially Joanna. Her forehead, she did not look recognizable after this fight. And it wasn't big, and you can't let that deter the fact of you thinking, like, that she got destroyed in the fight.
No.
It was just... she got hit pretty good there, and it started swelling to the point where it looked like she was an alien almost.
Oh, it was terrible.
But it was not like a deterrent of the fight.
No,
it was.
No. She just unfortunately got all the physical repercussions for sure. But yeah, like you said, I think that these two were definitely the top contenders in the division, and this is one that was so close. Even though Whaley was the champ, usually you don't run it back with a contender right away. Yeah. But the UFC has a tendency, they like the money fights. They don't follow the rankings 100%. I mean, they're a marketing business.
Yeah, at the end of the day,
run it back. This and I agree with that. I'm more of a rankings guy where you follow the rankings. You've got to run this one back. I mean, this fight was unbelievable. I mean, last fight, Whaley grew into such a star, and for China, she was China's first champ. China's never really had a huge presence in the UFC. I mean, she made herself a star in the last fight. Yeah. If you think she was hot after the last fight, holy cow, this absolutely unbelievable. I mean, the superstardom that she gains from this is unbelievable. I mean, Dana made a point of how marketable she is in China. I think she's, Amanda Nunes is the women's GOAT as of now, for sure. Yeah. I mean, who she's beat, the way she's beat them. Yeah. Whaley, from a marketable standpoint, I mean, I think she could be the biggest superstar in the sport we've ever seen. I mean, the potential is off the charts for her.
Well, that, and most people are calling that like the best women's fight that I've ever seen.
Easily, in my opinion.
I would go as far as, I don't think it's the best, but I think it's one of the best fights ever in general. Men's, whatever you want to call it. I think it's one of the best.
I would completely agree with that statement. I mean, it's the best fight I've seen in a long time, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, when you have rounds where you're literally saying to yourself, okay, this fight is going to end any second. Yeah. That was in the first. We were saying that in the first round from the beginning. Whaley caught her a bunch, or actually, I think Joanna had two strikes at the beginning where we're like, holy cow, she's using her range. I mean, she was picking these strikes. Yeah. And then Whaley started countering then. She started getting in her face, and we thought, Whaley's going to end the fight.
Well, the Whaley's punches are different than Joanna's in the sense of, I think Joanna like actually reaches her punches and lands them more, but I think Whaley's they're just so much more power behind that punch.
That's what Joe Rogan was saying too.
Yeah, I mean, and body kicks the same way for Joanna. 100%. That's one of the things that made it so razor thin, I think, is all those leg kicks. And
so last performance bonus of the night went to both Whaley and Joanna for their fight of the night.
Much deserved.
They'll both get $50K. Well deserved. Dana should have broke out his checkbook even more for them for that. Unbelievable. So hopefully we'll get to see him heal up. All great, and then we'll run it back. So moving on to the main event, the highly anticipated Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero, which I'm going to be honest, Yoel's fight against Paulo Costa, it was very close. But let's be honest, that was Yoel's second loss in his past two fights, and 3 out of his last 4 he had lost. And they gave him a title shot for the sole fact that Israel felt like his legacy wouldn't be complete without Yoel. Yeah. And I see his point. I didn't think it was fair, though, necessarily. The reason that they ended up doing it was because Paulo Costa had just beaten Yoel. He was the clear guy to get the title shot, but he got hurt. Yeah. Wasn't able to fight for a while. So this was basically the interim bout per se. Obviously, Israel's the undisputed champion, but Yoel goes in. Everyone figures Israel's going to win the fight, and then it buys Costa time as opposed to just waiting a long time. So I was okay with that, and I like Yoel. He's 42 years old. This is potentially his last title shot, and for all he's given to the sport, I was okay with it.
Well, that's what made me the most mad, I think, is the fact that this was like Yoel's possible last title shot, and as much as I wanted him to win and I had money on him, the fact that he didn't go out there and look for blood right away made me almost think that he didn't want it that bad, because
it was so weird, man. I mean,
he finally made weight, right?
He makes weight. He's missed weight 3 times in interim title fights.
Right. So he makes weight. So it's literally in his reach. He can have that title. And what's he? It was the most snooze fest fight I have ever seen.
Horrible.
Especially a main fight.
Horrible. Very disappointed in the performance from both of them. So let's talk about the scoring. Israel won horrible fight. There's nothing to even cover in it. I mean, it was so boring. They stood there the entire time. Israel used leg kicks. Yoel had a couple of very nice counter strikes to the head. Other than that, total snooze fest. I mean, there were maybe 10 strikes thrown in the first round total from both fighters.
I don't even think that. I think there were
7, 4 and 3.
Yeah, and the only one that was significant was this haymaker of a punch from Yoel.
The first punch thrown.
The first punch thrown, and then after that, it was literally like they were just dancing around the entire round.
The first minute 30, I don't even think
they didn't touch each other.
They stood there. Yeah, horrible.
Yeah, it was.
Let's talk about the scoring, though. So, unanimous decision for Israel Adesanya.
Yeah.
One judge had it scored 49-46. I'm going to be honest. If I'm scoring the fight, I had the first round's almost a draw. I'll give it to Yoel for the nice overhand he threw. I had 1 and 2 to Yoel and 5 to Yoel.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had it 3-2 Yoel, all 10-9 rounds. Israel, I gave 3 and 4 to. He did do some damage to his leg. I told you, though, man, I knew the way the judging's been lately with, especially Jones-Reyes, I knew Israel's getting it. Ariel Helwani's made a good point in the past to where you don't give it to the champ if you're not sure. You don't have to beat the champ and dethrone the champ. You score it how it is. I 100% agree. I still think that goes into the judges' heads, and that...
There's a champion bias that's always going to be there.
It's always going to be there. I don't care.
It's the John Jones-Reyes fight. It's Dana White. He never has a clear answer on anything. He always is like bipartisan. He's never going to tell you that he's like, we're not the judges, so how?
Yeah.
And it's like
but then he'll throw judges out under the bus for other fights that
it's so inconsistent, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So for the post-fight press conference, Dana actually went on and he said that it was a horrible fight and it was boring. And I was really hoping he was going to say that. This actually made me think of when John Jones fought Santos for the light heavyweight championship about a year ago. And he basically said, John Jones did a great job. He did what he had to do to win the belt. And that was a snooze fest. That was Jones' most boring fight he's ever had, and Dana protected him. So I expected him to say he did what he had to do in Israel Adesanya. He did call it out, said it was a horrible, boring fight. He critiqued Yoel, which I will say, I do 100% agree.
Yeah.
Yoel needs critiqued, and you said that too when we first brought this up. Yoel didn't go after him. You got to think, Yoel's almost 43 years old. This is probably his last title shot ever, assuming he loses. He stands there for the first 2 minutes of the fight, and basically the whole fight, off and on.
With that, though, what I will say is I think the first round was just stupid in general. Like, it was basically like a delay of the rest of the fight because there was nothing that happened. But after that, I do think Yoel started to kind of engage some more of like the hand-to-hand combat stuff, but I think Israel kept running away, and
ran away the entire fight.
And something that Dana said in his post-fight interview was that, Israel did what he had to do to win that fight, and he plays like to the same skill as his opponents.
Yeah, and for me, he said, "Did you see his leg? I mean, look at the." And Israel said that in the cage too.
Yeah,
is that what it's come to for the standard for a championship fight?
It's how they look afterwards.
Well, not just that. Oh, did you see his leg? Did you see his knee, man? How hard I kicked it? I mean, I get it, but if I'm Israel Adesanya, I'm ashamed. I mean, the fans were booing the entire fight, rightfully so, and Dana and other people. Well, the fight before it was a Hall of Fame fight. I don't care. To me, that does not factor. That fight by itself is getting booed 10 times out of 10, no matter where it's at.
It got so bad in that the ref between round 3 and 4 came up to both of them and said, hey,
give the judges something to score.
Give them something to score because right now you're not even putting on a fight. First off, I don't know if he was told to tell them that or if he was reacting to the people booing out in the crowd. And
I think it was the crowd.
But either way, if you have a ref coming up to you and saying, dude, like this is not even a fight and they can't even score anything that you guys have done, then that's a problem.
Yeah, 100%. And my biggest problem with this is, Dana in the past, he speaks his mind. And some fights that are coming to mind right now for me that he's really critiqued, the performance of the champion is Anderson Silva and Damian Maia when they fought. Mm-hmm. And Tyron Woodley and Stephen Thompson, too, when they fought the second time. I mean, he ripped Woodley. First of all, Anderson Silva was the first one, and he said he was an absolute clown out there. I mean, he just ripped him. Then Tyron Woodley, he said, that's one that really relates to this. He said, "Did you hear the crowd booing him the entire time? It's a problem when the crowd's booing and you're running around as a champion. What's the difference between what Israel Adesanya did?" And the point he made in that Woodley fight was it was the least amount of strikes thrown in a title fight. Where's the same criticism here? Yeah. I feel, and I'm a big Dana White fan. The stuff he's done for the sport and has marketed for the UFC, without Dana White, we wouldn't be here. There's no way. I mean, the guy's a marketing genius, and he just loves it, and that's why the UFC is there. He has such a passion for it, but I do feel like he's kind of protecting his superstar, prodigy in Israel Adesanya, and he's not given equal treatment.
Yeah, I think, and it's just like the judges. It's that champion bias as well.
Yeah,
and you have to look at it from Dana's point of view of him being running a business, and it is.
I get it.
The marketability of Israel is so high. I mean, plus think about it, Yoel, 42 years old. Most people should stop fighting by then, anyways. Like, he doesn't have much more in him.
Yeah.
When it comes to title fights and stuff like that. So I think the route that Dana had to take right here for his own benefit would have to be with Israel.
Yeah. And I will say this, even though Yoel versus Costa was such a big fight, I do think Adesanya and Costa is a much bigger fight for the sole fact that Paulo Costa hates Israel Adesanya.
Got kicked out last night.
Yeah, he got kicked out last night. He was there, cage side, got kicked out. He knew he was next in line, and I think he's happy Adesanya won because he gets his shot. That's the fight. That's the person he wants to fight in the championship. And
something I've never seen, though, before, at least from my experience of watching fights, is this last round, and there's like maybe 30 seconds left, I think, and Yoel was getting all kind of pissed, really, that he was like trying to throw punches, like trying to end this fight in the last round, and Izzy was just running away and stuff. And so he's like throwing his hands up saying like, "Come on, man, like hit me." And then Izzy flips him off, right? Mm-hmm. And then Yoel keeps doing his thing, and then finally he flips him back off. And then after the fight, when they put the camera on Izzy and you got the camera on Costa,
people are booing,
and then Izzy flips him off again.
Well, he says, "Oh, let me hear the boos," and then flips off the camera.
Yeah, like
absolutely disgraceful. And I know these guys like to, before the fight, like to sell it, but after the fight, for me, that was I didn't like it at all. Israel Adesanya, you cannot be proud of that for performance. Absolutely, it's a shame. I feel bad for the people who paid their hard-earned money to see that
which proves why they didn't get a performance bonus.
Well, yeah, that was never even a possibility after round one, probably.
I know. I'm just saying, it's crazy to think that they would.
That should have been fight of the night.
That should have been something that should have been the biggest fight.
Should have been fight of the night. All right, so as for performance bonuses, we touched on this a little bit, but Sean O'Malley and Beneil Dariush got performance of the night, so they got $50K each. And then Whaley and Joanna, obvious fight of the night. That'll be in the Hall of Fame.
Fight of the year.
Oh, yeah. One of the best fights of all time.
Yeah.
Fight of the night, so props to all of them. Absolutely awesome. So let's turn the page here. We're looking on to next Saturday. We've got UFC Fight Night 170 in Brazil. When I first looked at this card, I thought, Kevin Lee, Charles Oliveira, decent main event. I look at the depth of this card, and it, if you're an ESPN Plus subscriber, it's a free fight.
Right.
It's a great card. So let's touch on this a little bit. I'm going to start with the finale of the prelims. So we got Yassier Formiga versus Brandon Moreno. This is the a flyweight bout that these guys potentially. they after the Benavidez and Figueiredo, they said, well, since that's still vacant, maybe we'll make this the title fight. Well, they're going back to Benavidez and Figueiredo rematch for the title
Which
fight.
they should.
They should.
That was a ridiculous
But
fight.
these guys are both top contenders for Miguel and Moreno. So that kicks off that is the finale for the prelims. What a fight that is. So now to the main card. We've got Francisco Trinaldo versus John Makdessi. We've got Johnny Walker, great prospect, versus Nikita Krylov. And, Johnny Walker was a guy that was so hyped up, brought up through Dana White's Contender Series, fights Corey Anderson, and gets melded.
Yeah.
And I think he, took advantage of that a little bit, and he's coming up against a very angry Corey Anderson. Corey Anderson wants a title shot, and he had some good points, but I think he still had a little bit more to prove. Man, did he prove it against Johnny Walker. That being said, I think this is a great bounce-back fight for Walker. We'll touch on that in a little bit. Then we've got for the third fight tonight, Renato Moicano versus Damir Hadzovic. Then for the co-main event, we've got Damian Maia versus Gilbert Burns.
Yep.
It's a great fight. Great fight. For the main event, this is a very intriguing matchup, though. Kevin Lee versus Charles Oliveira, which Kevin Lee, his performance in his last fight, my gosh, that knockout was one of the most brutal knockouts I've ever seen, with that right and then the left head kick.
He's a warrior. If I could describe him in one word, it'd be a warrior.
Oh, he was such a, Kevin Lee, the Motown phenom. He was such a prospect coming up. He fought for the interim belt not too long ago against Tony Ferguson, and he was actually doing very well in that fight, and then Tony ended up submitting him. But his last fight, he really bounced back, and wow, I think this is going to be fireworks. But it's great for the fans and the people of Brazil, because in each, let's see here, literally every single fight besides the very first prelim fight has a Brazilian in it. And on the main card, you've got Johnny Walker, Damian Maia, Charles Oliveira, and also Gilbert Burns, who's also from Brazil, is fighting Maia. This is going to be a great show for the people of Brazil. Absolutely can't wait. So something that we're going to do on every single episode of Fight Lab is we're going to pick 3 fights.
Yep.
We're going to give our predictions. So you'll see next episode the results, but we will also turn to Twitter and we'll have our fans vote, and then we'll give the results of everyone.
It should be on an overlay right now, actually.
Yes. You'll be able to see this right now.
Yeah.
So we had some technical difficulties last episode.
Yeah.
We were actually going to do a pre-fight show, but we made our picks. Social media picked Adesanya to win, Weili to win, and Sean O'Malley to win. I picked Adesanya, Weili, and O'Malley as well. And Scott picked O'Malley, Weili, and Romero. Yeah. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of a running total.
Yeah.
So currently I'm 3 for 3. Scott's 2 for 3. Social media's 3 for 3. We'll make it a little interesting. Maybe have some wagers, some little punishments down the road or something. So for this card, we picked 3 fights to make our prediction on as well. The 3 fights we chose were Kevin Lee versus Charles Oliveira, the main event, Damian Maia versus Gilbert Burns in the co-main event, and then Johnny Walker versus Nikita Krylov. So for me, for the main event, started off there, I've got Kevin Lee over Charles Oliveira. He's got great momentum after his last fight. For the co-main event, I actually am going to take Damian Maia in this one over Gilbert Burns. He's actually an underdog, but his performance over Ben Askren, and he's actually on a 3-fight win streak. I really like him in this. Gilbert's definitely got the age advantage, and Gilbert's actually on a 4-fight win streak as well. But I'm going to go Maia just with the experience here, and I think the crowd's going to be pulling for Maia in this. Both Brazilian guys, but and then Johnny Walker versus Nikita Krylov. I'm going to take Walker. Walker's got a lot of hype behind him, extremely talented, very awkward, hard to read. I'm going to go with Walker. I think he bounces back after a tough loss, Corey Anderson. So I'm going to go Walker.
And I'm going to agree with all those except for the Burns-Maia fight. I'm going to take Burns over Maia. Burns is on a 4-win streak right now. And he has the age advantage because
Big age advantage.
Maya's 42 years old, almost like the Yoel Romero fight.
Yeah.
And Burns 33.
Yeah.
With the age difference, I think that Burns is going to take it.
So I can see it happening. It's kind of like you never know when it's going to happen for Maya, But all right, so another thing we're going to do is each week we're going to give our bets to place. We're going to give you some odds. We're going to give you maybe like a parlay each, or maybe just a straight up money line bet.
Right.
Maybe even a knockout or a submission bet.
Yeah.
So this week, my lock-in bets are, I've got a parlay. I feel really confident in Kevin Lee and Johnny Walker. I think both of those guys are going to get very nice victories. That's really the ones that I'm really confident in. So I want to lock that in. A two-leg parlay. It's right now on DraftKings. It's really going to depend on what platform you're on and what day. I mean, it's gonna vary. But right now, those two combined, Lee and Walker, is plus 181 for money line parlay. I also like a money line bet on Damian Maia. He's plus 155.
Yeah.
And I like his odds for that. I think that's some pretty nice odds if you just bet it straight up. Plus 155.
And then I'm going straight with the 3-leg parlay, doing Lee, Burns, and Walker. I'm more of the try to get the most bang for my buck kind of guy. So that's a plus 321 on DraftKings, like I said, or like Cale had said, it can change depending on really what time of the week you're betting, plus what platform you are betting on. But we strictly use DraftKings just preference-wise.
Looking for that sponsorship.
Yeah.
Thanks if you're out there watching this.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of crazy too. Burns is a minus 200 favorite. Just adding that Burns leg onto the two-way parlay that I did, it goes from plus 181 to plus 321. So hey, if you feel confident in Gilbert Burns,
he is the favorite in that fight over Maia, like it's a safer bet.
Yeah, and those, like we said, those might change, but right now he opens up as the favorite.
Yeah.
So one thing that I think is really important about our show every week is that we really interact and include the fans. We do that with our social media picks. But we really wanted to take some fan questions every week, and that's something we're going to stick to. So we reached out on Instagram and Twitter, and we picked 2 fan questions. So we're going to go ahead and read those. So the first one is from Tanner Thomas via Twitter. Tanner asks us, what is the truth behind the pay for UFC fighters, and why is the flyweight division being shut down? So a little bit of a 2-part question there from Tanner. So we'll start off with, what is the truth behind the pay for UFC fighters? To be honest, I really can't give too much info on that. Dana's been pretty vague about saying how they get paid, but I think we can all say that it's really a promotional pay-per-view buy system. I mean, if you're selling fights, you're going to get paid. I mean, look at someone like Conor McGregor between someone that fought on the prelims, at UFC 248. I mean, it's...
Well, that, and it's even evident in this last fight that we just watched. 3 of those fights, or 2 or 3 of those fights, got bonuses at the end of it.
That's another thing too, is if you get performance bonuses. Yeah. But the main reason you're getting paid is from selling the fights, and and sponsorships too. So the structure is a little bit weird. So what is why? He also asked, why is the flyweight division being shut down? Well, there had been talk that the flyweight division might fold, and, after Demetrius Johnson left for one championship, there was talk that, there's not a lot of... Demetrius is one of the greats, and he wasn't getting paid like he wanted. And just, those guys being smaller, they thought maybe we'll just put an end to this. But, I think with that Davison Figueiredo and Joe Benavidez rematch that's coming up, I think... Depending on how that goes, I think it's here to stay. I think there's going to be, the sport keeps getting more talent in it. I think there's going to be some really exciting guys coming up, and I think it's stayed, so it's going to stay. So I really don't have a fear right now that the division will be shut down.
Right. Okay, and then we also had a fan question from Instagram, which we're going to do one from Twitter and Instagram probably every time, or maybe multiple. It just depends on the week.
Yeah.
But so from Instagram, we had Garen Markham ask a question, and he asked, do either of you guys have experience in combat sports? MMA, boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu? And the quick answer is no. We do not. We enjoy watching it. I enjoy learning about it. It's definitely, for Cale, I think especially, he always talks about how awesome it would be to get into the cage or do something like that. Me personally, I don't really have the interest in it just because I know physically I wouldn't be able to do it. But who knows, maybe one day. But it's just more of a passion of watching and being immersed into the sport that way. But
I have major respect for those guys, and I think it'd be interesting to. I've always wanted to dabble in that a little bit, whether it's boxing or wrestling. That's something I never did, and it's become a passion of mine as a fan, and I think we'll keep it that way.
Yeah, I think we like to learn about it, and we respect the people that do it, and we know it takes a special person to do it because it's not physically, it's emotionally, it's mentally, and for some guys it's even spiritually. It's really an all-around just dynamic that I don't think I personally have.
So, guys, think about some questions you might want to ask us for the next episode, and we'll be happy to take those. So you can submit those on all social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, at Fight Lab Podcast. So let's wrap it up here. So start times for UFC Fight Night 170 in Brazil. The prelims are going to start at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, followed by the main card at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So that about wraps it up. But before we go, we do want to mention on Twitter right now, kind of in the spirit of March Madness, and we've been starting this. We've been thinking about all our inspirations for how we got into the fight game. I had said Chuck Liddell was the first fighter I really watched. His was Anderson Silva. So with that being said, with how popular the bracket challenge has become for NCAA basketball, we decided to do our own March Madness UFC pound for pound GOAT bracket. So we're going to do a female one eventually too, and we'll do all sorts of variables for this, but we did we sat down and talked for a long time about who we thought in order were the top 20 UFC pound for pound fighters of all time. So we ranked those, we seeded them, and we're kind of in the middle of voting right now on Twitter. So we've matched everyone up, and we're doing it kind of section by section where the fans can vote on who they think is the GOAT. So we're about halfway through, so head to Twitter, check it out, and vote on each round. So
another thing that would be cool for people to do, we did put a fully blank bracket on there we have the ranked people on there. I'm saying I want people to go out there and fill out their own brackets too. Send those out. I think it'd be fun to do. Everyone to be able to participate in that. So
kind of a cool thing we're doing. So, with that though, that concludes episode 1. Like I said, we have so many great ideas. We're so excited to release content. I mean, it's up from here, guys. So, and if you have any suggestions about the show, anything, any input questions, please submit those to Fight Lab Podcast on all social media platforms. So,
with that being said, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys.